The rain battered the stained glass windows of St. Mary's, a modest church tucked in a forgotten corner of Chicago. Ethan Caldwell, CEO of Caldwell Enterprises, pushed through the heavy oak doors, his tailored coat dripping onto the stone floor. At 42, he was a titan of industry, his name synonymous with wealth and ambition. Yet tonight, his polished exterior hid a hollow ache. The boardroom victories, the penthouse views, the private jets, they no longer filled the void. He hadn't set foot in a church since he was a boy, but something, perhaps desperation, had drawn him here. Inside, the pews were mostly empty, save for a scattering of souls seeking refuge from the storm. Ethan's eyes scanned the dimly lit sanctuary, landing on a young woman in the third row. She was no older than 20, her clothes threadbare, cradling a sleeping baby wrapped in a faded blanket. Her face was weary, but her eyes held a quiet resilience. Ethan hesitated, then slid into the pew beside her, keeping his distance. The scent of damp wool and old hymnals filled the air. He didn't know why he chose that spot. Maybe it was the only one that felt alive. The service began, a soft hum of voices rising in a hymn Ethan didn't recognize. He glanced at the girl. Her baby stirred, letting out a faint whimper. She hushed it gently, her hands trembling slightly as she adjusted the blanket. Ethan's gaze lingered on the child's tiny fingers, curled like petals. Then it happened. A sudden wave of dizziness hit him. His vision blurred, the hymn fading into a distant echo. The last thing he saw was the girl's startled face as he slumped forward, collapsing onto the pew. When Ethan came to, he was lying on a cot in the church's basement, a damp cloth on his forehead. The girl was there, kneeling beside him, her baby now awake and gurgling softly in her arms. "You okay?" she asked, her voice tentative but warm. Her name, she said, was Lila. Ethan nodded, embarrassed, his head throbbing. "Just haven't eaten much today," he muttered, though he knew it was more than that. The weight of his life, the loneliness he'd buried under deals and deadlines, had finally caught up. Lila offered him a granola bar from her tattered backpack. "It's not much, but it's something," she said. Ethan stared at the crumpled wrapper, then at her. She was feeding him, a stranger, when she clearly had little to spare. He took it, his throat tightening. "Thank you," he whispered, the words feeling foreign. They talked as the rain drummed above. Lila was homeless, she admitted, living in a shelter with her son, Noah. Her story was one of loss, parents gone, a boyfriend who vanished when Noah was born. Yet she spoke without bitterness, only a quiet determination to keep going for her child. Ethan listened, his world of stock portfolios and corporate mergers feeling distant, irrelevant. He wanted to help her, not out of pity, but because her kindness had cracked something open in him. He offered to pay for a hotel room for the night, but Lila shook her head. "I don't take handouts," she said firmly. "But if you want to help, the shelter's low on formula and diapers." Her practicality stunned him. No demands, no manipulation, just a mother thinking of her son. The next day, Ethan returned to the church, a bag of supplies in hand. Lila wasn't there, but the pastor, a kind-eyed man named Father Daniel, recognized him. "She's at the shelter on 5th, he said, smiling. "You're not the first to be touched by Lila's spirit." Ethan drove to the shelter, his Bentley absurdly out of place among the cracked sidewalks and faded signs. He found Lila helping an elderly woman with a tray of food, Noah strapped to her chest. She looked surprised to see him, but accepted the supplies with a shy "thank you." Over the next weeks, Ethan became a regular at the shelter, bringing supplies, volunteering, even playing with Noah while Lila worked odd jobs. He learned her dreams. She wanted to be a nurse, to build a life where Noah wouldn't know hunger. Ethan, who'd spent years chasing power, found himself inspired by her quiet strength. He offered to fund her education, expecting resistance. But this time, Lila paused, her eyes searching his. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. Ethan faltered. How could he explain the emptiness that had driven him to that church, or the way her selflessness made him want to be better? "Because you reminded me what matters," he said finally. Lila nodded, and for the first time, she accepted his help, not as charity, but as a partnership. She enrolled in community college, balancing classes with motherhood, while Ethan quietly paid the tuition. Months later, at a shelter fundraiser, Ethan stood in the crowd, watching Lila speak. She was poised, her voice steady as she shared her journey, thanking the community that had lifted her up. Noah, now toddling, clung to her leg, and the room erupted in applause. Ethan felt a warmth he hadn't known in years. He'd given her a chance, but she'd given him something greater, a purpose beyond himself. As the event ended, Lila approached him, Noah asleep in her arms. "You didn't just help me," she said softly. You showed me people can care without wanting something back. Ethan smiled, his heart full. The rain had stopped long ago, but in that moment, he knew he'd found something brighter than any boardroom could offer. The power of kindness, binding them all, him, Lila, Noah, in a quiet, unshakable hope.